Tiffany Henyard, once celebrated as Dalton's first female mayor and a trailblazer in local politics, has become the central figure in a scandal that has shaken the small Illinois village to its core. Her rise to power was initially seen as a victory for progress and a symbol of breaking gender barriers. However, her tenure has been plagued by allegations of corruption, financial mismanagement, and abuse of power, quickly transforming what was once an inspiring political journey into a cautionary tale of ambition gone awry. Henyard's leadership was once hailed as a beacon of change in Dalton, a town struggling with stagnation and underfunding. Her election was seen as a groundbreaking achievement, particularly for women in politics. Yet, as her power grew, so did the rumors of misconduct. Henyard appointed unqualified allies to key village positions, allegedly seeking to consolidate political influence by surrounding herself with loyalists who lacked the necessary qualifications. These appointments, made without legal approval, sparked controversy and raised serious concerns about her leadership. Her refusal to adhere to legal requirements only worsened the situation. Henyard ignored the objections of Dalton's Board of Trustees, fostering an environment of distrust. As tensions between her and the village's legal system escalated, she continued to defy court orders, further eroding her credibility. What had begun as a hopeful period of progress soon descended into political dysfunction. With Henyard's leadership becoming increasingly autocratic, the allegations against Henyard went beyond political maneuvering. She was accused of embezzling state funds to finance a lavish lifestyle, using public money for personal indulgences while the community's essential services suffered. A key witness, a former lover, came forward with explosive testimony, implicating Henyard in both financial misconduct and unethical dealings with local businesses. The witness claimed Henyard accepted bribes in exchange for fast-tracking permits and offering preferential treatment. These revelations painted a grim picture of Henyard's leadership, leaving Dalton residents feeling betrayed. What was once hailed as a historic achievement, the election of the first female mayor, quickly turned into a cautionary tale of how power can corrupt. Henyard's rise had inspired many, but her political action soon left a lasting stain on the village's governance. Criticism mounted over Henyard's appointment of loyalists to high-ranking positions, including village attorney, police chief, and administrator. These individuals were seen as unqualified for their roles, and many believed Henyard was more focused on consolidating power than serving Dalton's best interests. Instead of addressing the community's concerns or complying with legal challenges, Henyard dug in her heels, disregarding objections and court orders. This defiance seemed to embolden her, isolating her further from the people she was meant to serve. Tensions between Henyard and Dalton's legal system grew, and her refusal to cooperate with the courts contributed to a breakdown in communication and cooperation. Even her once loyal supporters began to turn on her, seeing that she prioritized her political survival over the needs of the community. Her actions conveyed a sense of entitlement, as if she believed she was above the law and the democratic processes meant to govern Dalton. The scandal dominated local news, with stories of her failure to follow court orders and the growing rift between her and the village trustees. The public's trust in Henyard eroded as it became clear her priorities had shifted from serving Dalton to preserving her political power. The promising political career of Dalton's first female mayor had descended into a cautionary tale of how quickly power can corrupt and unravel a leader's legacy. When trust is lost as investigations into Henyard's leadership continued, new evidence surfaced, deepening the scandal. A witness previously considered peripheral came forward with testimony, accusing Henyard of using her position for personal gain. The witness claimed Henyard misused municipal funds for lavish travel, unnecessary purchases, and other luxuries while the village struggled to meet its financial obligations. This revelation added another layer to the growing scandal, showing that Henyard had used her political power to undermine the legal framework at the expense of the very people she was supposed to serve. In addition to financial misconduct, the witness accused Henyard of engaging in corrupt dealings with local businesses. Henyard allegedly accepted bribes in exchange for preferential treatment, including fast-tracking permits. This abuse of power undermined the integrity of Dalton's legal system, raising serious concerns about her commitment to public service and her motivations. As the details of Henyard's alleged wrongdoing continued to unfold, the implications for Dalton became more troubling. The village, already struggling with underfunded programs and essential services, now faced a financial crisis exacerbated by Henyard's actions. The community, which had once entrusted her to lead them toward a brighter future, now grappled with the painful reality that she had used her position to enrich herself and advance her political agenda. Public outrage grew louder, and many residents began to question whether Dalton could recover from the damage caused by Henyard's leadership. At the heart of the controversy was her apparent disregard for the legal system and the checks and balances meant to ensure transparency and accountability in local government. Her refusal to cooperate with the courts, her defiance of legal orders, and her attempt to consolidate power by appointing unqualified allies all pointed to a leader more interested in maintaining control than in serving the people of Dalton. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Henyard's actions had left a lasting stain on the village's political system. Her downfall was a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the corrupting influence of political ambition. What had once been seen as a promising political career, marked by historic achievements and groundbreaking progress, had now descended into a political drama defined by corruption, scandal, and betrayal. Dalton, once proud of its achievement in electing a female mayor, now found itself deeply divided and struggling to recover from the fallout of her leadership. With the FBI now involved in the investigation, the prospect of federal charges loomed large. The scale of Henyard's alleged corruption and mismanagement appeared far worse than anyone had initially imagined. As the walls closed in on her, it became clear that her political career was coming to an end, leaving Dalton to face an uncertain future of political instability and deep mistrust. Henyard's story, once seen as a triumph for women in politics, had become a tragic reminder of how power, ego, and corruption can unravel even the most promising leadership. The village of Dalton, once filled with hope for progress, now faced a difficult task of rebuilding its trust in leadership and recovering from the damage caused by Henyard's actions. As the investigation continues and the full extent of her alleged misconduct is revealed, it is clear that the damage to Dalton's political system will take years to repair, if it can be repaired at all. Tiffany Henyard's political career, once hailed as a historic breakthrough, was rapidly spiraling toward an end. The small community of Dalton, which had once united in hope for a brighter future, now faced an uncertain and unstable future filled with political turmoil and deep distrust. As the scandal surrounding Henyard continued to unfold, the community grappled with a painful realization that their hopes for positive change had been shattered by the very leader who had promised that Henyard, once celebrated as the first female mayor of Dalton, had become the central figure in a scandal that revealed corruption, financial mismanagement, and a pattern of abuse of power. What was initially seen as a milestone achievement for female representation in politics was now overshadowed by mounting allegations of misconduct. The village, once filled with hope for progress, now found itself struggling to rebuild its trust in leadership. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that Henyard had used municipal funds to finance a lavish lifestyle. Extravagant travel, unnecessary purchases, and indulgence in luxuries were made at the expense of Dalton's essential services, which were severely underfunded. This misuse of public resources deepened concerns about the integrity of Dalton's political system. At the heart of the investigation were Henyard's controversial appointments, which included placing unqualified allies in key village positions, such as village attorney and police chief, despite legal requirements for proper approval. Her refusal to follow court orders only fueled suspicions that she was willing to break the law to consolidate power. Tensions within Dalton's government mounted, and many began to speculate that her political connections had shielded her from accountability, allowing her actions to go unchecked for longer than they might have in a less politically connected environment. Despite the mounting evidence against her, Henyard vehemently denied the allegations, framing them as part of a politically motivated smear campaign. However, her increasingly strained relationships with key allies and her questionable political alliances raised further suspicion. It became evident that her political future was on the brink of collapse. The pressure on Henyard intensified, and the once loyal support base that had championed her election began to crumble. Dalton residents, once hopeful for change, now demanded accountability and transparency. The tipping point came when a key witness, with intimate knowledge of Henyard's personal life, testified against her. The testimony painted a disturbing picture of Henyard using her position for personal gain, enriching herself and her allies while neglecting the needs of Dalton's residents. This deepened the public's distrust in her leadership, and Henyard's once unshakable hold on power began to slip away. Her response to the growing crisis only worsened matters. During a court appearance, Henyard became visibly shaken, and her emotional outbursts reinforced perception that she was losing control of both the situation and her temper. The subsequent online backlash was swift and unforgiving, with many Dalton residents calling for a resignation and criminal charges. Social media erupted with condemnation, and Henyard was labeled dishonest and accused of betraying the trust of the people she was meant to serve. As the scandal continued to dominate the headlines, it became clear that Henyard's leadership, once a symbol of progress and hope for Dalton, was now a tragic reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, ego, and corruption. The village, deeply divided and struggling to recover, faced an uncertain future. Unsure of how long it would take to repair the damage caused by her actions, Tiffany Henyard's once promising political career, hailed as a historic breakthrough for women in politics, was rapidly unraveling. Her leadership, which had initially ignited hope and optimism for the village of Dalton, had transformed into a full-blown crisis. What began as a symbol of progress now served as a cautionary tale of ambition, unchecked by accountability. Dalton, once filled with the promise of change, now found itself mired in scandal, corruption, and a deep sense of betrayal. Henyard's increasingly erratic behavior and failure to address the growing concerns of residents only fueled the community's frustrations. During a crucial village board meeting, her arrival was delayed, and when she did speak, her words were met with audible disapproval. Instead of acknowledging the public's concerns or making an attempt to repair her tarnished reputation, Henyard chose to push forward with her agenda. This disregard for the community's needs and priorities painted a picture of a leader more interested in preserving her political position than in the welfare of Dalton's residents. The room, thick with tension, made it clear that Henyard had become disconnected from the very people she had sworn to serve. The situation grew more dire when continued accusations of financial mismanagement and a lack of transparency within Henyard's administration came to light. Residents began to question the whereabouts of their tax dollars, especially as essential services, such as infrastructure, education, and public health, remained underfunded. The growing frustration was compounded when it was revealed that Henyard's administration had violated state laws meant to ensure openness and transparency in government, further escalating public anger. With the possibility of criminal charges hanging over her, Dalton found itself amid a political crisis, grappling with the fallout from Henyard's leadership. Federal authorities, already quietly investigating Henyard's financial dealings for nearly a year, seemed to be closing in. The focus of the investigation was on dubious financial transactions and accusations of financial mismanagement, and it became evident that the authorities were taking the matter very seriously. Several individuals close to Henyard, including her boyfriend, had already been questioned, and his testimony sent shockwaves through the community. His revelations only added to the growing sense of betrayal felt by Dalton's residents, as it became clear that Henyard had used her political position to enrich herself and her associates at the expense of the town's well-being. As Henyard's political career neared its end, Dalton was left to pick up the pieces of a broken system. Her attempt to rally her dwindling support on social media with a cryptic post invoking religious rhetoric, "If God is for us, who could be against us?" only deepened the divide within the community. This message, intended to galvanize her remaining supporters, backfired. The one solid base of support began to erode as Henyard's refusal to engage with the public or address the growing backlash reinforced her disconnection from the people she was supposed to serve. The investigation into her actions progressed, and became increasingly evident that Henyard's grip on power was slipping away the growing momentum of the federal investigation, combined with mounting pressure from local officials and residents, painted a grim picture for the future of Dalton. Henyard's leadership, once celebrated as a sign of progress and change, had now devolved into a tangled web of corruption, financial misconduct, and abuse of power. Revelations about her misuse of public funds only added to the sense of betrayal, as it became clear that she had prioritized her interests over those of the community. Federal authorities uncovered a troubling pattern of expenditures that seemed designed to support Henyard's lavish lifestyle, including extravagant travel and unnecessary purchases. While Dalton's essential services languished underfunded, many of Henyard's closest allies began to distance themselves from her as the full extent of her misconduct became clear. Local politicians, who had once supported her rise to power, began publicly voicing their concerns. One trustee, in a rare public statement, called for Henyard's resignation, stressing that Dalton needed real leadership to move forward. This marked a significant shift in the political landscape of Dalton, as Henyard's once strong network of allies fractured under the weight of the scandal as the investigation evolved from a series of rumors and accusations to serious concerns about criminal behavior. The future of Dalton's political system became uncertain. Henyard's actions had damaged the very foundations of the local government, and many residents questioned whether the system could ever recover from the deep wounds caused by her leadership. While Henyard continued to deny any wrongdoing, her refusal to engage in meaningful dialogue with the public only deepened the divide. The trust that had once underpinned Dalton's political system had been shattered, and rebuilding that trust seemed like an insurmountable task. Henyard's attempts to regain control of the narrative continued to backfire. Her refusal to address the concerns of the residents, combined with her emotional outbursts during public appearances, only reinforced the perception that she was losing control. During one particularly tense village board meeting, Henyard arrived late and attempted to assert control with a speech that was met with audible disapproval. Her comments, instead of calming the room, further alienated the community. Rather than attempting to repair her damaged reputation or address the mounting criticism, Henyard chose to push forward with her agenda. Further isolating herself from the residents, she was meant to serve the federal investigation into Henyard's financial dealings intensified as new revelations surfaced. Allegations of corruption and misuse of public funds mounted, and it seemed increasingly likely that Henyard's actions would result in serious legal consequences. As the investigation gained momentum, residents began questioning the very structure of their local government. Was it possible that the system had been compromised by Henyard's actions? Could the town ever recover from the damage she had done? The situation reached a boiling point when Henyard's attempt to rally support with her social media post backfired. Her cryptic message, "If God is for us, who could be against us?" only served to alienate even her remaining supporters, who were growing increasingly disillusioned. The public outrage intensified, and Henyard's grip on power continued to weaken. The investigation, which had been quietly ongoing for nearly a year, had now entered the public eye, revealing a troubling pattern of financial misconduct, corruption, and abuse of power. Federal authorities were taking the matter seriously, and the possibility of criminal charges loomed large with mounting pressure from both the public and local officials. It was clear that Henyard's tenure as mayor was nearing its end. Whether she would step down voluntarily or be forced out by the weight of the investigation remained uncertain. But what was clear was that Dalton's political future was in turmoil. Henyard's leadership, once seen as a groundbreaking achievement for women in politics, had devolved into a symbol of corruption, dysfunction, and scandal. The road to recovery for Dalton would be long, difficult, and fraught with challenges. The scandal surrounding Henyard's leadership had exposed deep flaws in Dalton's political infrastructure. The investigation into her financial mismanagement, potential corruption, and abuse of power raised serious questions about the integrity of the village's local government. With federal authorities closing in on Henyard, it seemed increasingly likely that the investigation would have far-reaching consequences for both her career and the future of Dalton. As the community of Dalton looked ahead, the questions remained. Could the village ever recover from the damage caused by Henyard's leadership? Could the political system be rebuilt? And could trust in local government be restored? The path forward was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The political future of Dalton had been irreparably changed. The scandal had exposed the dangers of unchecked power, and Dalton's residents were left grappling with the consequences of a leadership failure that had threatened to undermine everything they had worked for. The unfolding crisis would shape Dalton's future for years to come. Whether the community could rebuild its trust in the political system, and who would be able to restore faith in leadership, remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. Henyard's fall from grace would serve as a stark reminder of the consequences of corruption, ambition, and betrayal.